there's a feeling, I suppose, amongst farmers to bottle things up, not to talk about things. And certainly there's nothing like giving somebody your ear to listen to them. Not always to give advice, perhaps, but just the power of listening shouldn't be underestimated. As somebody said, the greatest gift you can give to any man is your ear, so to listen sometimes can be a powerful tool for farmers.
Hello and welcome to the Beef Edge, the Teagasc Beef Podcast, for all your latest news, information and advice for Irish beef farmers. I'm Catherine Egan and this week is Men's Health Week, and I'm joined by Laurence Gaughan, Regional Health Manager in the West of Ireland with the HSE. Farmers tend to prioritise farm work and the health of their animals. Laurence discusses some key tips to keep healthy and to discuss the new initiative Taking Stock. Laurence, you're very welcome. Before we start, can you give a bit of a background to yourself?
I work in the HSE here. I'm in an area called the Health and Wellbeing, and I'm based here in Castlebar, but I do have a regional remit across Galway, Mayo and Roscommon. And part of my remit is around men's health. And in recent years, I've had an increasing interest, I suppose, in the whole area of farmers' health. And we now realise that farmers are health is not that great really, and may need some special focus. And we have a range of initiatives ongoing, and today I suppose I'd like to talk about some of those, and I'd also like to highlight some of the health issues associated with farmers. I come from a farming background myself in the west of Ireland. I grew up in a small village, so I'm very familiar with farming and some of the challenges facing farming.
From working with farmers, Laurence, we know farmers' health is very important. Why is it so crucial?
I suppose there is a perception out there that farmers are very healthy, actually, that people think that farmers, have a very healthy lifestyle, that they're out in the fresh air, they're exercising a lot, they're quite busy, and that their health is quite good. But when you look into it in a bit more detail, farming has changed a lot over the years. Farmers spend a lot of time now using machinery, they're sitting a lot, they're driving machinery, and farmers are also working alone a lot. So there are other elements then to farming. Of course, we all know we've had really good weather there during April and May, and all of a sudden then the weather has changed again. So there's a lot of unpredictable factors associated with farmers, of course. And there's a lot of research now to show that farmers' health is actually not that good from a few angles. Teagasc have done a lot of research around physical health, and farmers are at increased risk actually of heart disease, diabetes and various things like that. And also farmers' mental health. Farmers have a lot of stress and worry and financial pressures, and there's a lot of unpredictable factors associated with the lives of farmers. So I think all of this adds up to something that we should look at in a bit more detail, and that's why we're so keen to help farmers and to give them some advice and tips that can improve their overall lives and health and well-being.
And farmers tend to prioritise the farm work and the health of the animals perhaps over their own health, Laurence, and their own safety. How can this be overcome?
Yeah, well, that's a very common theme, that the farmers will always, if an animal is sick on the farm, of course, the farmers react and they call the vet, and they react immediately. But if a farmer's own health, farmers, these things don't happen all of a sudden. Generally, farmers may have an ache or a pain or a worry, and things build up, and farmers have to keep going, of course, particularly in the busy seasons. Farmers feel they have to keep working, and they're on their own, of course, and the farm depends very much on the farmer. But I think what farmers have to realize is that their own health needs to take priority sometimes, and their own well-being. So they really need to prioritize themselves. And what they need to consider perhaps is what happens if I'm not able to work. What happens to the farm then? How serious will that be? So really some prevention tips, I suppose, really is what we're working on. And basic things like, as farmers get older in particular, there should be an annual kind of checkup for farmers. The idea of an NCT, farmers are really good at getting the tractor checked and the car checked. And if the red light comes on the tractor, they won't keep working. Generally, they'll go and check it out. But oftentimes the red light can be on for the farmer and he doesn't realize it or he ignores it. So really things like an annual NCT where you get things checked out, and the habit of going to your GP and checking things like your blood pressure and your cholesterol and your blood levels, basic things like that can really be really important.
Laurence, you mentioned there how farming can have its own stresses and worries, and there's a huge amount of variation. In relation to financial strains, what financial planning actions can help overcome stresses and worries?
A lot of these things are interlinked, I think. So, when we talk about worry and, people worry about different things, and farmers have additional worries that I mentioned because of they're not able to control their environment. It's not like a 9 to 5 job where you're guaranteed to get paid every week or every month. So there's a lot of things beyond the farmer's control. So, the whole area of financial planning and financial pressures, and that can build up over time. And the idea that farmers need to get advice sometimes on these things, not maybe ignore things as they happen. And then the whole area of farm succession, I think we've learned as well, can lead to a lot of worry for farmers. And farmers tend to put this off, they tend to put off this conversation. And they don't really plan ahead. And it's about starting those type of conversations and seeking professional advice as well. And these things, I think, are all kind of interrelated for farmers, the whole area of financial stress, worry, uh, and succession. They all tend to be interlinked, I think.
And you mentioned there the farm succession. What are kind of the main concerns for farmers, or how can they be overcome?
I'm not an expert in the area of farm succession, of course, but it appears that a lot of farmers don't plan for this. They may um, try and put the issue on the long finger, certainly, and they may not seek advice. So we'd be suggesting to farmers to seek advice, talk to somebody in the farm succession planning area. There's a lot of resources there from Teagasc, for instance. Um, Talk to a legal person, get some financial advice, and start planning around those things, and it can be a very difficult issue to begin the conversation. I suppose the other thing, farmers are getting older generally. Here in the West, we understand that the average farm age now is around 60. So it's something that farmers should certainly be looking at and thinking about.
Laurence, with regard to everyday stress, farmers are balancing farming, family life, and perhaps an off-farm job, and it can take its toll on mental strain. What advice have you for farmers listening? What actions can they take to help? And likewise, maybe family members or a caring neighbour that's listening, what can they do to show their concern and to help?
So I think, as I said earlier, these things tend to build up over time, and people may seem, you may see somebody who seems worried, they're not themselves, they may go quiet, and I suppose it's to be aware of how people are feeling really on these things, and things can build up. And then there are an awful lot of supports available, of course, and helplines and information and supports available. But the key thing sometimes can be that maybe not to seek help in time, maybe to put things off. There's a feeling, I suppose, amongst farmers to bottle things up, and not to talk about things. And certainly, there's nothing like giving somebody your ear to listen to them, and not always to give advice, perhaps, but just the power of listening shouldn't be underestimated. And being aware, I suppose, of people, if somebody seems a little bit distant, um, out of sorts, asking them, are they okay? Can you help them? We, as somebody said, the greatest gift you can give to any man is your ear. So to listen sometimes can be a powerful tool for farmers.
Most definitely, Laurence. And you mentioned there loneliness. Farming can often be a lonely job if farmers are living in a rural area and perhaps working alone mostly. What can you advise for people that are feeling lonely or isolated?
Of course, we all know that rural Ireland has changed a lot. People don't meet as much. We've lost a lot of the rural supports, perhaps the post office, the creamery, where people met. Even the pubs are in decline, and people are more isolated, I think. So people don't have as much time. Of course, people seem to be rushing a lot. So there are, of course, apart from maybe seeking local supports, there are an awful lot of helplines and support services available. For instance, there's agencies like Alone, who offer a very valuable support line and listening service. And then they also have people on the ground, of course, to support people who are lonely as well. There's an awful lot of support workers now on the ground. There's also, of course, the very valuable helplines indeed, organisations such as the Samaritans, which is a 24-hour service. There's also the likes of Pieta House. There's other HSE alone lines. We might give these at the end if people would like to make a note of any of these helplines. We might give these helplines at the end. Some of these key organisations, many of whom, of course, are 24 hours, and they are a very good initial point of contact. And these services are all free, of course, to people. So they're very valuable supports that are available to people.
And we've seen in recent years an increase in the number of men's sheds projects taking place across the country.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, and indeed, the men's shed movement has really blossomed around the country, and there's a few hundred sheds now, of course, and they are a great support as well for men. Most of the men tend to be retired or semi-retired, but of course they're open to anybody. And indeed, every part of the country has a men's shed, and they're a great support to people as well. And there's a very good website called menssheds.ie, which has all the information on sheds throughout the country as well.
You're one of the founders, Laurence, of a new initiative called Teagasc. Can you tell me more about it?
This initiative, I suppose, developed this year when, as I was saying earlier, when in us in the HSE here, and indeed our partner organisations in Galway County Council, Mayo County Council, and Roscommon County Council, we all joined forces, and we developed this initiative called Taking Stock, and we also have other partners such as Teagasc and the IFA locally, and we're really trying to, I suppose, initially create awareness around farmers' health, and we did that during the month of March, and we focused on 4 themes on cardiovascular health, financial planning, farm succession, and mental health and work-life balance. And we did a range of information initiatives across the local media, the farming publications, the farming programs, and across the region here in the local radio stations. And we're going to further develop that later in the year with one-to-one contact with farmers. So we think this could be a model potentially that other partners and agencies around the country could develop. It's called Taking Stock, and I suppose it's about farmers reflecting on where they're at, getting information to farmers, making them aware of what supports are available, and trying to reach perhaps thousands of farmers. Our difficulty is that we can only reach a very small number of farmers one-to-one, but we are hoping to develop this model further.
And as part of Men's Health Week, there are a number of events, Laurence, taking place across the country, from webinars to in-person events.
Yeah, indeed. And Men's Health Week is a very important week. It runs running this year from the 9th to the 15th of June. So across the country, it's now ongoing maybe for 10 or 15 years. And it's a very important week for all men, not just for farmers, but it's really to highlight the whole area of men's health, to make farmer people and men and farmers aware of their own health, to give that sense of it's time to check in with ourselves, where we're at and what supports are available. And as you say, there's a wider array of events throughout the country, and some in person, some online. And there's a very good website nationally called it's the Men's Health Forum of Ireland, mhfi.org. It's a national website, and a great deal of information and resources will be there. So it's an opportunity. Here in the West, we have quite a lot of events happening. We're, for instance, going to MABS as well on the middle of the week. We're in Ballina Mart, and on Saturday the 14th we're over in Mam Cross Mart, and on Thursday we're in Roscommon Mart. So we are going to marts as well, bringing information stands, health screening, and bringing these services to farmers. We also have 2 online events. The first one is on Wednesday the 11th at 7 p.m. It's an online seminar on men talking, and then we do have another online event on Thursday the 12th on retirement planning for men, and that's another topic linking earlier to what I was saying about succession, and the impact of retirement on men can be quite a difficult subject, and a lot of these events they're open to people around the country as well, these online events.
Finally, Laurence, people in their thousands turned out to Darkness into Light walks across the country earlier in May. And unfortunately, many of us have experienced the pain of losing a family member, a friend, a neighbour or a relative to suicide. For those that are listening that might be feeling reluctant to reach out for help, or for those that are worried maybe perhaps about someone they love, what supportive advice would you offer?
Yeah, indeed. And I suppose it goes back to the earlier point about, men find it difficult to talk and to seek support. They tend to be quite a different reaction to women in terms of crisis, and when they maybe don't seek support so easily. So we would certainly encourage men to speak about how they feel, seek support. Sometimes seeking support can be seen as a weakness amongst men, but to actually seek support is a sign of strength. So it's really important that and indeed people who may notice somebody, as I said earlier, maybe they're withdrawn, they're quiet, they're not themselves. So maybe to not ignore these type of symptoms, try and talk to the person, try and offer them some support services and some support lines. And as I mentioned earlier, there's a few key support numbers and helplines I might mention. One is Samaritans that I mentioned earlier. It's a 24-hour free helpline, and it's 116 123 116 123. There's also Pieta House, which is very well known and is a crisis helpline 24 hours a day as well, and it's 1-800 247 247. Of course, I also mentioned a loan earlier, and citizens information, and MABS, the money advice and budgeting services, and of course, not to forget Teagasc and Teagasc offices and advisors, of course, who can offer very valuable support and advice. And I would mention as well, here in the West, we have a really good website where all of this information can be found. Virtually everything I've mentioned earlier can be found on this very good website here in the West. It's easy to remember. It's westbewell.ie. One word, westbewell.ie. And all of the information I've mentioned can be found there for all of these help services and indeed other additional supports as well.
That's great, Laurence. Some great help and advice there from all the links. I'll include them in the podcast text. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Catherine.
That's all for this week's episode, and my thanks to Laurence for joining me on the show. For further details on the links mentioned in the podcast, they are available in the podcast text. You can catch up on all other shows and interviews from the Beef Edge podcast on the Teagasc website at teagasc.ie, or you can listen on Apple and Google Podcasts as well as Spotify. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe so you never miss a show. For all other updates from our beef programme, keep an eye on our Twitter and Facebook pages. Until next time, I'm Catherine Egan, and thanks for listening.